Hey everyone, how you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's going on? It has been a 2 week, hiatus for me because I was moving into a new place. So sorry everyone, haven't been able to stream over these past 2 weeks. It's been very, very chaotic, but I'm all moved in now, and everything's looking good. My new place is awesome. Um, Maybe after I get everything unpacked and settled in, I'll do a little video showing you my new office and my new house. It's gigantic. But a lot of stuff has been happening over the last couple of weeks that I want to get into, so we'll jump right into it. First off, thank you to Lewis the Hedgehog. Thanks for joining, and too bad we won't see you too much this stream, but thanks for stopping in, man. Appreciate that. So before we get started, here's the piece that we're currently working on. I do this kind of thing a lot where I'll fill up the entire page with various stuff, and this is like a page from a journal, so you can kind of see around the edges how it's got like, you know, um, artifacts from the scan and everything. So we'll just be cleaning this up over the next couple streams, and then I might actually put some color behind this. So, lots of crazy things happening over the last couple of weeks. It seems like the conservatives and evangelicals and other assorted right wing crazy people have gone full steam ahead into attacking trans and gay and LGBT rights and also abortion, right? Over the past, you know, past couple of weeks, months, I guess, but it's kind of accumulating now, right? Kind of hitting a crest now. They're getting ready for, excuse me for a second. They're getting ready for the midterms, and they're starting early, right? And, here's the thing about this, right? A lot of people on the left, you know, um, who care about stuff like this, a lot of people on the left are not very politically active. There's an entire sort of segment of people on the left who are apolitical when it comes to voting, for example, right? And and it's not just because they don't think it actually does anything. Although you always get those people. You always get the people who say voting doesn't do shit, blah 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 blah, right? Um, but there's sort of this sentiment that when you vote, you're giving your consent for the upkeep of the system. That the system itself is the problem, and when you participate in the system, you're just sort of like perpetuating the ills of that system. And not only are you perpetuating it, but you're also sort of giving your consent for the crimes that the system commits by participating in it. And so the only moral thing to do is to not participate in the system. Well, that's why a lot of people on the left tend to gravitate towards things that are much more direct action oriented. Protesting, for example. Protesting, um, you know, boycotts, sit ins, demonstrations, stuff like that, right? And it's not to say that those things can't be effective, right? They can. We have proof that they can be. The Civil Rights Act, for example, is proof of that. But that will only get you so far, right? Those types of demonstrations, those types of direct actions do a lot to spread your message around, right? In order to get your agenda out there and get people talking about it and to bring it to national attention. When you have a march or something like that or a protest or whatever. But if you don't follow that up with electoral politics, you know, then your change is just not most likely not going to happen. I mean, that's using the civil rights movement as an example there as well. You know, there was a good 10 years or so of marches and protests and speeches and all that stuff, and And then you got the, what did you get out of it? The Civil Rights Act, right? You got actually some of those demands that the people were making in order to get rid of things like segregation and stuff like that, and to get rid of like elements of institutional racism. I mean, not to say that it was all removed, but um, you actually got some of that passed into a law that was codified. And then what happens when you get it passed into a law? It allows you to use the system in order to, you know, affect change, right? So now it's, once you have a law that says this is what you have to do, X, Y, Z, it's not just protesting anymore. Then it's, well, you can actually take direct action and the system itself will enforce it. And that's really how you affect real change. Well, that's never going to happen if you don't engage, in electoral politics, right? You know, it's never going to happen unless you vote in the people who will actually enact the laws that you want. And that I think is a very huge failing for people on the left. For certain factions, I guess, of the left. People like anarchists and stuff like that. They don't like to vote. You know that kind of thing, right? And yeah, of course, I understand. It's like their ideology says, well, there shouldn't be governments and blah 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 blah. And why should I participate? And right, and it makes perfect sense. But I guess what it really comes down to is like, well, what do you care about? Do you care about actually helping people and getting things like institutional systemic racism like addressed? Do you care about things like people who are poor and starving, stuff like that, getting help to them? Getting knocking down, I guess like oligarchy and stuff like that. Like, do you actually care about these kinds of things? Do you care about controlling corporate power? Do you care about limiting censorship, that kind of thing? Do you care about religious people using their power to enforce their religion upon you, right? These are all things that you're not going to be able to protest away, you know. That's and using an example of that, let's look at the after the 2008 housing crisis. You had the Occupy Wall Street movement, right? That movement didn't follow up with any effective legislation. There has been legislation that was passed. I mean, there were rules that were tightened, things like that, but you know, it was basically passed by the corporate class in order to protect themselves because it's in their best interest for shit not to collapse, right? But none of the protections trickled down to the average user or consumer or person who was hurt by, you know, the housing bubble collapsing and then the banking industry not being regulated, stuff like that. People didn't, and that's why it took a decade for things to recover. And in some places in this country, it never recovered after 2008. Some places in this country are suffering just as bad as now as they were then because, because normal, ordinary people were not taken care of, right, after that. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you don't vote. When you don't vote, the other team, and I hate this because this is going to sound all tribalistic and shit, but it's true, right? You got two opposing parties or whatever, two opposing interests. One team votes, the other one doesn't. The one that votes wins. That's just how it goes because this is the system we live in, right? So maybe that'll be a lesson. It's like, no, elections matter. And all of this shit that's happening right now is because people didn't vote, because conservatives have consolidated power in certain parts of the country. And, they kind of have that shit down to a T. They know exactly, how to rile their base up. They know exactly what buttons to press. They know exactly what to say in order to get people out there to those polls, and it just so happens that they're motivated by hatred and bigotry, right? And, this is what happens when we don't show up to stop them, right? I see some people have joined. Let's see, who do we got here? FR. I don't know how to pronounce your name. What's my religion? How do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry, dude. It looks like some kind of like runic writing or something. What's my religion? Agnostic. That's my religion. I am you would call me culturally Christian, but I am not a Christian. I don't I believe that there is an afterlife, most likely an afterlife, but I don't believe that anyone has any proof of their anything if there actually being an afterlife. Like, you know what I mean? But I also understand that this is just my personal belief, and I have no proof either one way or the other. So I would never imagine trying to enforce my view on anyone else. This is just what I acknowledge that I want to believe there's an afterlife, and that's why I believe it. But, you know, it is also most likely true that there is no afterlife. It's also most likely true that there may be one of the religions out there is true, and I think we have no way of knowing. So that's my personal belief. Um, so anyway, um, let's. I will read your comments at about 1 hour in at about 12 o'clock. But I do want to kind of get through some of the content that I have here prepared because I want to talk about first. There's been a number of anti-trans bills that have been passed in the country that I'm sure you guys have heard about. So this first one, here's I'll just copy this. I'm not going to open this link, but I'll put it down in the chat for you guys. Here's an article from NPR, actually, that is talking about in Alabama. They passed a version of the, in Florida they have that Don't Say Gay bill. I actually did an entire stream on that about 3 weeks ago. So Alabama has passed their own version of the Don't Say Gay bill. It is the Vulnerable Child Protection Act. And this passed the Alabama State Senate 66 to 28. So by a pretty much a overwhelming majority there. I'm pretty sure if we were to go look there, it's most likely along party lines. But, I don't want to say that because I don't know for sure. And also this is Alabama, so Democrats in the Deep South like this are pretty much indistinguishable from Republicans. But anyway, what this does is that it outlaws puberty blockers or hormones for transgender youth or any kind of reassignment surgery for anyone who is under the age of 19. So the reason why this is bullshit, in my opinion, is because puberty blockers, so hormones maybe not, right? Puberty blockers are reversible. That they are usually something that is given when the young person has expressed a desire, they've come out as trans, right? And you give them puberty blockers so that they don't develop. And the thing is that if they at one point decide they don't want to go through with it, right, and they want to express as their birth gender or whatever, then you just stop taking the puberty blockers, and then puberty hits as normal, and it's sort of like no harm, no foul, right? And that is the consensus among the scientific community that that's what happens, So it's sort of like, why would you block that from people, right? Here's the other thing about this law. It doesn't just say minors, right? It's up until the age of 19. So, when you're 18, you're a legal adult in this country, right? You can sign a contract. You can drink in some states, not in all states. But I know in some states like Colorado and Wyoming and shit, you can actually drink when you're 18. At least you used to be able to. I don't know if you still can. You can join the army. You can get a job. You can pose nude. You can become a porn star at 18, right? You can do pretty much everything that an adult can do in this country with a few restrictions. You know, there's some places like rental car places won't let you rent a car until you're 25, shit like that. But generally, you're treated as an adult. If you murder someone, you can get life in prison. Why can you not get gender reassigning surgery at 18? Why is this blocking it at 18? Right. I can understand blocking it for minors, people who are minors, right? Which is the thing is, minors usually do not get gender reassignment surgery anyway, like ever. In fact, I would challenge someone to find an example out there of a minor who actually got gender reassignment surgery, bottom surgery, breast implants, shit like that. You're not going to find it. You know, I mean, I'm sure it's probably happened one time or something like that out there. But it's not like that's a very common thing that happens all the time. Usually, minors do not get reassignment surgery. Usually, minors don't get hormones for transition reasons. You know, they might actually like give you hormones or something if you have like a hormonal imbalance when you're a minor, but not for transition purposes. That's usually not a thing that happens until you're an adult, right? You know, I mean, it's actually not easy in most states to get reassignment surgery. You have to go through like psychological like assessments and shit like that, right? Because the reason why is because the doctors want to ensure that you don't, you know, that you really want it and that you're not going to like wake up 5 years from now saying, what have I done? And, you know, it's too late to go back and then you'll be super depressed and shit like that. That's like what they don't want to happen. So they want to make sure, you know, and they want to, you go through rigorous testing and stuff like that to ensure that this is it because it's irreversible, right? You're not going to find someone who's 16 years old getting that surgery. So why is this shit blocking it? Right. And what it ends up doing is that it ends up, first off, you know, the taking away the puberty blockers thing just ends up like making life harder for kids who actually are trans, who want to be trans, who want to express their gender, you know, in whatever way they want to. And now they have to go through even more steps in order to become passing. They have to do shit like shave or whatever. Or if you're like you know, if you're like a trans man, you have to like bind your, you know, in order to just to pass as a man, you got to like do all kinds of weird shit and like, you know, bind your chest and all that other crap. And, you know, and what kind of message does it send? It sends a message that the state is not interested in you. The state doesn't give a shit. You know, the state's going to and that's ultimately what it is. You know, what this really is Christians. That's why. It's because of Christians. It's because, oh, wait a minute. You know what we need here? We need to put another layer. Hang on. There we go. And drag that up. And then we need to get my paint bucket here. And I'm sorry for my dog barking in the background. There we go, paint bucket. And we need to make that white. There we go. So now when we go back to our paintbrush and we erase, when I erase this, it'll actually be white there. Very nice. Perfect. Anyway. Yeah, and it's essentially Christians, you know, conservative evangelical Christians forcing their will on everybody else. Right? So this bill also has the added benefit of forcing teachers, school counselors, and nurses to inform parents if a student has expressed a desire to be trans. Like if a student comes to them in confidence, says, hey, I have strange feelings, I think I might be trans, they are now required by law to tell their parents. Which is another bad thing because if the kid wanted to tell their parents, if the kid felt it was safe to tell their parents, then they would tell their parents. The whole reason why they're going to a, you know, oh, hang on a second. The whole reason why they're going to a school counselor or a teacher or somebody in authority like that in the first place is because they don't feel comfortable at home telling this to their parents. and they want to tell somebody that can help them. And it's like, up until this point, that person was the teacher. It was your school counselor. It was somebody that you trusted, you know, trusted not to fucking rat on you. Because why? Because if you told your parents at home, your conservative Christian parents are going to beat the living shit out of you, take away all your stuff, and kick you out of the house. That's why. And now that's gone. It's essentially, this is basically saying the state is condoning abuse. That's what this is, right? It's fucking bullshit. It's the same reason why, certain states like California allow minors to get abortions, right, without informing their parents. And you would immediately think, well, why? That's horrible. You shouldn't, your parents should know about these things, right? Well, no, they shouldn't, because if the kid felt comfortable telling their parents, they would tell their parents. And the only reason why this exists is because there are households and people out there who are abusive, who will, abuse the child, right? Because of, the reason, the real reason is because they're conservatives and Christians. And fucking Christians are assholes. That's really, conservative Christians are fucking assholes who don't give a shit, want to enforce their fucking will on everybody, and will kick the kid out of the house if they find out. And it's like, think about when, you're 16, what's your fucking choice? They're going to find out if you have the child, they're going to force you to have it, and it's going to ruin your fucking life. You get an abortion, they might find out about it, and it's going to ruin your fucking life. You're screwed. It's like, the whole point of it is to basically just control women and control their sexuality, and to prevent them from, deviating from the accepted norm. That's what it really is. That's what all of this shit is really about, is to just basically enforce what the Christians think is normal on everyone else, and they're using the law to do so, right? So, the Republican sponsor of this bill, his name is Representative West Allen of Troy, Alabama, right? He sponsored the House version of this bill, and basically his argument is that transgender kids are not old enough in order to make this decision themselves, right? Best quote from him from that article: "Their brains are not developed to make the decisions long term about what these medications and surgeries do to their body." That's his sort of like, borderline ableist kind of ageist take on this, right? Please keep in mind that this is not applying only to minors. See, you could conceivably make that argument if he said people below the age of 18, people who are not adults. This affects people who are adults. When you're 18, when you're 19, you are an adult. You should be able to make that decision for yourself, right? That's the problem. It's like, it's sort of like, that's the thing about that, is like, well, if you're old enough to decide to go join the army and fly off to a foreign country and kill people, you should be old enough to decide how you want to express your gender. And you should be old enough to decide to, if you're old enough to get a tattoo, you're old enough to go to to smoke, right? To buy cigarettes, to put poison in your body, right? Old enough in some states to drink alcohol. I personally think it should be 21 in every state, but some states say 18 is fine, right? You're old enough to have sex on camera and put it on the internet for everyone in the world to see. You should be old enough to decide that you're going to take some hormones or puberty blockers, right? Although most people hit puberty by the time they're 18 anyway, but that's not the point. The point is that this law is restricting what adults are allowed to do, not just children, right? And it's the thing is, it's restricting a thing that children don't actually do. Children don't actually get surgery. They usually don't get hormones. And so what is this law going to address? What is it going to actually address? It's kind of like a made up problem that doesn't really exist. And it's like, well, because it's a culture war. like law. That doesn't actually do it. And you can always tell when a law is bullshit like this, when a law is just there to feed red meat to your base and not actually do anything. You can always tell that because what's the practical effect of it? It doesn't actually solve any problems. Is this going to stop kids from coming out as transgender? No, it will not. You'll not suddenly see a drop of transgender kids, you know. No, it's not going to happen. It's just going to cause undue suffering for a bunch of people. And it's there, like, just to throw meat to the base so that they'll come out and vote for this fucking scumbag. And that's what it's all about, you know. I need to do something here real fast because I have a third monitor and I also have a mini fridge under my desk here. Every time the mini fridge stops, the third monitor blinks out and it's screwing me up. So I need to come down and unplug that. Anyway, so yeah, kind of total ridiculous bullshit. There we go. Unplug that. Okay. Let's see. So another bill that passed in Alabama was the Alabama version of the Don't Say Gay bill. This is HB 322. This is now law in Alabama as well. Is it law? Actually, you know what? I think this one just passed the Senate and has not been signed into law just yet. But who are we kidding? It's going to be signed into law. Right. Anyway, HB 322 is essentially the exact same thing as Florida's Don't Say Gay bill. Right. But what this does is that... Oh, it actually was signed into law. Okay, it was signed into law on April 8th. Sorry about that. And unlike Florida's bill, this one actually applies up to kids into the 5th grade. So Florida's bill goes up to the 3rd grade. This one goes to the 5th grade. Unlike Florida's bill, this one actually stops at the 5th grade. So Florida's bill, Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, actually applies to every state. Or every grade, right? Every child in grade school all the way up to 12th grade. Because of the way it's written, you know, it says 3rd grade or what is developmentally appropriate, right? So basically, it allows this out so that anybody can complain and sue if they don't like how gender or sexuality is being discussed in the classroom. So, and then it will require the state to create guidelines of what is and what isn't acceptable. And guess who's going to be the ones writing those guidelines? It won't be any gay people. It won't be any trans people. It won't even be any Democrats. It'll just be super ultra Christian conservatives who are Ron DeSantis' friends who are going to be writing those guidelines. And that's why Florida's bill is much more insidious than this one. This one doesn't seem to apply to the rest of students past 5th grade. It actually does stop at 5th grade. It says nothing about guidelines, anything like that. But it still has the same problem of just removing any discussion of sexuality or gender or anything whatsoever. So certain subjects are just going to be off limits. When we, in our discussion of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill last 2 weeks ago, I brought up Alan Turing as an example, right? Same thing applies here. Kids will not be able to learn about Alan Turing, right? It's, for those of you who weren't on my last stream, a very quick overview of Alan Turing. He was basically the guy who invented the algorithms which eventually became the CPU, long story short, and he was persecuted for being gay in Britain in the 50s, forced to take chemical castration pills because that's how they treated, because they thought gay people were mentally ill back then, and eventually killed himself. And there's a lot of people who think that he committed suicide, although some people think it was an accident. And that's Alan Turing. And you wouldn't be able to learn about Alan Turing or anybody else who's gay. You wouldn't be able to learn about him. You wouldn't be able to learn about, somebody like Oscar Wilde, whatever, not until you're, not until you're in fifth grade. And it's just, you know what it is? It's just othering gay people is what it does. It others people. And because I don't know if you guys remember being in grade school. I can't imagine that it's changed that much. But little children are cruel little assholes who very much like picking on each other. And one of the best ways for young boys, at least, to pick on each other is by calling each other gay. Do you guys remember that? I remember that. Of course, I was in grade school and shit back in the 1980s when it was really bad. I can only hope that it's better now. I can only hope that 30 years of political correctness have actually done something to get rid of that sort of cultural homophobia. Here's the thing about gay bashing, right? You don't actually have to be gay in order to be gay bashed. You just have to look gay. You don't even have to be gay. And here's the thing, like children at that age aren't anything. They're just children. They don't even develop feelings like that until you are like, 11, 12, 13, shit like that. Right? Not really, Most kids go through phases. There's phases where when you're a certain age, you only hang out with other people who are the same gender as you. Boys hang out with boys, girls hang out with girls, and then you get to be a little bit older, and then you start noticing that the girls exist, and blah, 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 blah. And these are just normal, ordinary phases, right? But that's the thing about it, is that, like I was saying, you don't have to actually be gay in order to be a victim of homophobia, in order to be a victim of gay bashing. You just have to look like you could be. You just have to have a haircut that doesn't 100% conform with the haircuts that everybody else has. You just have to wear a t-shirt that somebody thinks is too effeminate. Something like that. You just have to have a lisp in your voice, or not be strong enough, not be macho enough, not be especially when you're a little kid, if you're not super athletic, you're not really good at fucking baseball or whatever, that kind of thing. You like stuff like, I don't know, Steven Universe and My Little Pony or something, right? You like something that girls like. That's all it takes at that age for someone to call you gay and to fucking get your ass kicked. Right? Seriously, that's all it fucking takes, And in my day, when I was a kid, in the 80s, it was fucking Care Bears and that kind of thing. Care Bears and Gem and the Holograms and She-Ra. If you liked She-Ra, you were gay. People would beat you up. Right? I loved She-Ra. She-Ra was awesome because I loved He-Man. I'm a massively giant Masters of the Universe fan, Which is funny because He-Man is of the two, if you were to call each, which one's more gay, He-Man's way more gay than She-Ra. He just is. Not to say, this is just the truth. It's like butt naked barbarian guy. Anyway, you get the point. Is that, more than once. And this extends all the way up until when you're an adult. I live in Los Angeles, right? Los Angeles, you have North Hollywood, which is kind of where, all the gay people live. And it's been like that forever. North Hollywood is, very famous for having gay nightclubs and Santa Monica, stuff like that. And all you have to do in order to experience gay bashing firsthand, all you have to do is walk around North Hollywood with another guy. And you don't even have to be gay. Many times me and my brother would walk around down there. My fucking brother, for crying out loud, would walk around down there because, it's cool, right? There's places to go and, places to shop at and nightclubs and stuff, the fucking, the troubadours down there, that kind of thing. And guys will straight up drive by in trucks and scream at you, fags, right? I'm not making this up. This is, this happens even to this day. This is not just some like random shit that happened in like 1991 or whatever. It's like even to this day, that's all it takes. Just walk around down there, people will scream at you out the windows as they drive by in their cars. And here's the thing about that: the first time it happens, you laugh at it. You go, "Oh, ha ha ha! That guy thinks I'm gay." Right? The 15th time that happens, you want to beat someone's ass, and you'll start screaming back, "Fuck you!" like all loud, you know, more than once. And I remember my brother saying, "Hey, what are you doing? You're gonna get our asses kicked." Right? And it's because that's what it's like. So yeah, this it's something that affects everybody. Like if you really want to see what it feels like to be a victim of, and then imagine that was your life. Imagine that everywhere you went, everywhere you go, people looked down on you for something like that. That every time you like walked into a place, every time you applied for a job, you know, imagine that. Imagine what it's like, right? It's that's what these people are dealing with, and then they see some fucking law like this saying, "Hey, teachers are like, not allowed to talk about it." I mean, it's infuriating. It's infuriating, and it's not fair. And that's why this shit is wrong. It's because these people are being basically this is what actual persecution looks like. It's persecution. That's what it is. This is like using the state power in order to, you know, favor one group of people over another, right? This is actual fucking like institutional like, bigotry, right? Anyway, where the hell was I? I went off on kind of a tangent there. Sorry about that. Both of these bills rely heavily on what has kind of come to be known as pedojacketing, right? I'm sure you guys have heard many examples of pedojacketing recently. It's basically the attack from the conservatives and the Christians and the Republicans and the right wingers and the alt right people, blah, blah, blah. Their current attack against gay and trans rights relies on this stereotype that all gay people are pedophiles. That's the stereotype, and this is a stereotype which has been around for literally decades, right? It's been something that you can find articles, literature from the 1940s and 50s that mention this, right? You can find comedians making jokes about priests and stuff that they're all pedophile. Like I mean, even to this day, it's very much a living stereotype that gay and trans people have had to put up with forever. And this is, so now you're basically seeing like mainstream Republicans now, politicians and stuff use this line of attack when they say everyone who opposes these bills is a groomer. I'm sure you've heard that. I'm sure you've heard the groomer attack in the last couple of weeks, right? That's what this is. It's we're relying, pedojacketing is what they're calling this, right? It's relying on a stereotype. Here's the thing about that: gay people, trans people are interested in other adults. They don't want to have sex with children. They want to have sex with other adults. And this is sort of like it's a smear is what it is. And it's a way of basically sanitizing it while also at the same time capitalizing on the bigotry of their base in order to make these laws appealing, right? And yeah, maybe we'll do an entire stream on pedojacketing because it's sort of like really, really prevalent now, And I'm suspecting somewhere out there that this is like a coordinated thing because, right-wing strategies kind of, they sort of like, propagate through the right-wing, alt-right internet. And it'll usually start someplace like you'll see it someplace online, in a social media account. Like there was this story that just happened about a social media account on Twitter called Libs of TikTok. That's an example. Look up that story, Lids of TikTok. It's actually pretty interesting. That's an example. Someone will, get the ball rolling there, and then before you know it, Tucker Carlson's talking about it, and then actual politicians start using this shit in their ads and stuff, and that's what kind of seems to have happened with pedojacketing, right? It's really insidious and horrible, and it shows that the right wing really knows how to manipulate their base. They really know what buttons to press. That was the perfect button, the pedojacketing button, right? Because it sort of capitalizes also on QAnon, right, and all of this stuff. Like over the last year, all of the how QAnon has just sort of become very prevalent in right wing circles. It's capitalizing on that in order to you know get those people out to the polls, right? They're very motivated. They're very motivated because they lost pretty hardcore in 2020, and now they want to come back. And usually how it works is in the midterms, the opposing party sort of cleans up, and this time it's going to be pretty fucking bad. They're going to clean up pretty hard because of the census, because of gerrymandering, because of redistricting, because there's not a lot of motivation on the other side in order to counter this. And this is part of why I'm making this stream, because I want to motivate people, man, because this is what happens when you don't vote. Laws like this get passed. People get hurt, right? Let's see. Here's another really funny one before we get into abortion. Florida bans math books because of critical race theory. Right, so I'll copy that. I'll put this down in the thing for you guys here. That's definitely worth reading. In fact, you know what? Let's open this up. Let's read this. Let me just do a couple of things here. Let's see. Let's open this guy. All right, give me 1 second. Let's go over here. Let's turn on my monitor. Let's see. Laptop window. There we go. Okay, this is from NPR. Florida rejects 54 math books claiming critical race theory appeared in some. There goes the governor of Florida. Ron DeSantis. What a piece of shit. Let's read a little bit of this. Florida Education Department has rejected 54 mathematics textbooks for its K-12 curriculum, citing reasons spanning the inclusion of critical race theory to Common Core learning concepts. Critical race theory, of course, is not being taught in math, right? Critical race theory is not a subject that K through 12 people actually learn. It has become an umbrella term. Like the actual real critical race theory, what it really is a course that you take in law school in order to look at certain laws through the lens of institutional racism, to see how certain laws affect people of certain races in ways that are different than others. For example, disparities in sentencing for crack cocaine, for example, stuff like that. Right, that's something you would learn in critical race theory class, right? It has instead become an umbrella term for everything that the right wing doesn't like. So anytime anything says anything about race, they say it's critical race theory. Oh, this is critical race theory, blah, 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 right? Okay, let's see. So here we go. 12 books were rejected because they did not meet Florida's benchmark standards, while 14 books were rejected because they both included prohibited topics and failed to meet curriculum standards. So, prohibited topics, there you go. Anybody who is afraid of the state sticking its nose in what your kids should learn, Florida's doing that very thing. I thought that was a thing that conservatives and Republicans and all that shit really didn't like. I thought that they wanted to control what their kids learn. Well, they're allowing the state to control what their kids learn here, right? So anyway, let's turn this off, but I did want to read one more here. This is from CNN. Let's open this. We'll close the Florida one there. I'll put this down in the chat for you guys here as well. Let's see. This is the one we're currently looking at from CNN. Florida releases 4 examples from math textbooks rejected for public schools. There's a video here, but I'm not going to play it. But you can kind of see the pictures here. Here's an example of what they're calling critical race theory, right? This is a bar graph. I don't know, can you read that? The bar graph shows differences among age groups on the implicit association test that measures levels of racial prejudice. Higher scores indicate stronger bias. And then if you look, it says very conservative, moderately conservative. It's like super high. You know, this is the kind of stuff that they're rejecting. And it's like, how is this critical race theory? It's not critical race theory. It's a bar graph. It's teaching kids how to read data. It just happens to be using data that makes conservatives look bad. And that's really the reason why it got rejected. Not because of critical race theory. I don't know. Anyway, I left that... Oh, nope. Fuck off, CNN. I left that there for you guys. You can read those too if you want. I just thought that shit was funny. Let me turn that off. And let's go back to our usual programming. Let's read some comments. We're at 11:46. We can read some comments here. Let's see. Lewis the Hedgehog. Can't show up because I'll be at my grandmother's funeral. Keep in mind, during her early years, she lived through Nazi occupation, one of the first places Hitler annexed. The Sunderland, I think, that place the Chamberlain just let Hitler take. Then we all know what happened next. Well, man, that's too bad. Thank you for joining and coming in for a minute, Lewis. Lewis is like one of our most loyal viewers here, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a symbol, you know? That's sort of a symbol for creeping fascism, right? You know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that's a good example of how you can't appease fascism, right? Fascism can't be appeased. You can't just, you know, bribe them away or give them what they want, because if you just give them, you can't negotiate with them either. Because if you try to, they're just going to take and take and take. That was a perfect example of that. You know, Hitler annexed the Sunderland was a area in between Germany and France. That it's funny. It kind of sounds a lot like what's going on in the Ukraine right now, where a lot of people that lived there were ethnically German, spoke German, stuff like that. And it was an area that was annexed by France after World War One, if I remember right. If I'm getting this wrong, please let me know. But pretty sure that's what it was. And it was one of the first areas that Hitler basically, when he, like before World War Two, kind of went and you know, demanded be handed over to Germany. You know, and if I remember right, the president of France sort of negotiated it away and said, okay, take it. And the idea was like, we've achieved peace in our time. Like there were newspapers after that saying, yeah, peace has been achieved. You know, we've come to a diplomatic solution. And it's like, well, a few years later would prove all that wrong. You know, I think that's right. I could be wrong there. I'm pretty sure it was France, but it may have been some other country. It may have been Austria. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, and that is a good example of how you can't appease fascists, how you can't, you know, negotiate with fascists, how they don't negotiate in good faith, and if you don't stand up and stop them immediately in their tracks, this is what'll happen is that they'll just take more and more and more and more, you know, because you can't you know, you can't placate hate. It's not like they're going to suddenly stop hating because you gave them a couple of things they wanted on their wish list. Right? So, pretty good example there, Lewis. And my condolences about your grandmother. Um,
Okay, next question. What is my religion? I already kind of spoke about that. Um, Rob Black. Everyone should strive to be more like a carpenter from Nazareth. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that, I like the message of peace and harmony that comes from Christianity, right? That's at least the surface message. I mean, there are other messages from in Christianity that are maybe not so peaceful. But generally, the message of Jesus that everybody should be cool with everyone else and love your neighbor, blah blah blah, and rich people should spread some of that wealth around because you ain't getting to heaven if you're super rich, and take care of your fellow man, stuff like that. Those are great messages, and if Christians in the United States actually lived by those principles, I would probably be one of them. And here's the reason why is because Christians, especially in the United States, do not live by those principles. They live by what Jesus would consider satanic principles in the United States. It's all about money and power. You know, we have in this country mega churches, which are essentially corporations that rake in billions upon billions upon billions of dollars every year. They don't pay taxes on any of this money. And at the same time, we have millions and millions of homeless people that live in this country. Sometimes there'll be a giant mega church with homeless people sleeping on the steps of the church. This is, something is wrong with that picture, you know. And here's the thing about that. You could say, okay, well, how come the state isn't doing anything about that, blah, 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 right? Yeah, that's all true, and I agree with that as well. The government should be doing a shit ton more to help homeless people. But who among us is commanded by God in order to help their fellow man? Is it John Q. Taxpayer, or is it a conservative Christian who follows the teachings of Jesus? Right? Jesus Christ says, sell everything you own, follow me. Right? Jesus Christ says you are supposed to help people like this. Why are you not helping them? Why is this money going to giant mega churches? Why are people like Creflo Dollar and like fucking what was that one guy? God, I can't remember that dude's name. There was a preacher that got caught in a scandal not that long ago where they found like a bunch of like cash and checks and things like squirreled away in one of the walls of his bathroom of his fucking like mega church. What the hell was that? I'm gonna look that up. What the fuck was that guy's name? It was he was the same guy that wait, hang on a second. I'm gonna say Money Wall Church. What the fuck was this dude's name? Lakewood Church. Stash of cash and checks found inside wall at Lakewood Church is connected to a 2014 theft. And then what was the name of the pastor there? Blah 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 blah. Lakewood churchgoers, are they not gonna really say the dude's name that runs it? Um, Holy fuck, this article is not gonna mention the name of the fucking. All right, well that's fucking bullshit. Joel Osteen, that's his name, Joel Osteen. Right. Yeah, if you guys remember that, here's the thing that I was looking at. Here's the article. I won't open it, but I'll put it down in the chat for you guys. Yeah, Joel Osteen, mega church pastor guy in Texas. Who they found like fucking $500,000 like scrolled away in the walls of his church, and then it was because it was stolen in 2014 and shit like that. Right? Like perfect fucking example. This same guy Joel Osteen during the hurricane that they had in Texas there, like didn't open his like he locked his church up, and there were like people who were like, "Hey, we could use your church to shelter from the fucking hurricane." Because his church is gigantic because it's like this giant sort of mega corporation church that like seats like 50,000 fucking people, and it's like you could use this to save lives, and he wouldn't let anybody in, you know? Because it's not about the actual principles of Jesus Christ for these people. It's about making a shitload of money, right? And scamming people. And that's the prevalent, like, dominant form of Christianity in the United States. The fucking let's rip people off and pass laws in order to force people to do what we fucking say brand, you know. And if they would get back to the helping the hungry and homeless brand of Christianity, I might actually join them. I might actually be into that because that's the message that I like, you know. And it's funny, and what really gets me is that the people that the Christians persecute, right? The gay people and the trans people, and you know the people like the liberals and stuff that Christians are always like, that conservative American evangelicals are always railing against, saying we're going to hell and stuff like that. They're the people who actually, they're like better Christians than the Christians are. They're the people that actually go and help people. They're the ones that actually go feed homeless people and like try to give them housing and like try to do shit to clean up the environment. You know, American Christians don't do any of that fucking shit. They don't, right? It's all money for them. It's all money and like forcing women to fucking like live the way they want them to live and culture war bullshit with them. And that's why I'm not a Christian. And sorry, I mean, yeah, it's the people that actually believe in it have sullied the brand for me. Now, you know, that doesn't mean I'm going to go be a Muslim or, you know, like a fucking, you know, Buddhist or whatever. It's not like I'm going to go do any of that other shit either. I'm just going to be, I don't know, agnostic. Because I think it's all kind of, I kind of all think it's a load of shit, personally, religion. I don't know. That's a stream, a question for another time. I could get into my own personal religious beliefs, I guess. It's all, it's all mythology, if you ask me. But anyway, more questions. Let's see. Rob Black. Vote blue, get nothing. Vote red, more bloodshed. Vote nothing, get a passport, and keep your conscience. um, I would counter that. Um, I would say vote blue, forestall the inevitable, is what seems to be going on, right? Now, this is not to say that you never get progress when you actually vote for Democrats, because you do. One measurable bit of progress that we actually have gotten in the last 20 years is gay marriage, right? Gay marriage never would have happened if a, you know, if the Republicans were in charge. It never would have happened, right? And do you think that they're, you know, don't think that they're just going to let it go either. If they get the chance, they'll remove gay marriage. You know, that's a perfect example right there of actual change within our lifetime. Right. Here's the thing about it. See, you want certain things when you're, I mean, I don't know about you, but I want certain things as a progressive. At least I consider myself a progressive. I mean, I might not be as progressive as everybody, you know, certain other people. But there are certain things I want economically, at least. I want socialized healthcare, right? I want eventually, maybe not at this moment, eventually I think we're going to need a UBI, some form of UBI in this country in order to sustain the economy. That's something that we're going to need, in my opinion. That's not going to happen with conservatives in charge, you know. Um, Socialized medicine is not going to happen with conservatives in charge, right? It just won't. Environmental policy, sound environmental policy, which prevents basically the extinction of life on Earth, is not going to happen with conservatives in charge. They're not going to do shit until it's too late. They'll change the law once fucking cities start burning down because it's too fucking hot outside. By that point, it's too late. We're screwed, you know? They're not going to do it. They won't even support technologies which they could make money at, like solar power. You know, they could make a shitload of money, like, you know, the power companies, for example, you know, the oil companies, stuff like that, could make a shitload of money by transitioning over to solar. And they won't even support that. They won't even support subsidies for that work. You know, that would make their criminal friends money. They won't even do that. So it's like, they won't even, like, there was I used this example in a prior stream. there was a nominee to the Federal Reserve who expressed an environmental view. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, and was the opposition was so great to her that she had to withdraw her name. I can't remember, but there was an article about it, about how like basically conservative groups made up bullshit about her being in about her having like ethical scandals, and because she had a pro environmental message. So it's like that's not going to happen. These things are not going to happen unless we actually get people who care about them elected into office, right? The only political party that even gives half of a shit about these things are Democrats. That's just the truth. There are zero Republicans who care about the environment that are currently like, in office right now, especially at a federal level. Zero, absolutely zero. There are zero Republicans who care about a UBI. There are very few Republicans that care about Social Security, that care about, there are zero that care about health care, that actually want to get universal health care. Doesn't exist on the right. These things will never happen unless we make them happen. The only way we're going to make them happen is by voting, right? So that's why, I mean, the only other way that'll happen is if we like what revolt and take over the country, and well, good luck with that shit. That's not going to happen either, right? So, anyway, let's see. Okay, next question. Sorry, dude, you're gonna have to tell me how to pronounce your name because I don't know what it says. It just says F something, FF. But anyway, do you believe that you were created by a creator, not by a freak accident magic rock colliding? Um, I don't believe there is a creator. Put it that way. I I think that what we call religion evolved from a belief in ancestor worship, right? And ghosts. That's what I believe it came from. And if you look at early forms of religion, you have animism, stuff like that, where people think that everything has a spirit, right? There is not much of a difference between what you would call a god and what you would call a spirit in mythology. They're essentially the same thing. There's not a lot of difference between ancestor spirits and gods, right? If you look at tribes people in Africa and South America, stuff like that, they worship their ancestors. They worship spirits of rocks and spirits of trees, right? And then it goes a little bit further along, and then you start getting actual, you know, certain spirits become embodiments of certain aspects of either life or nature. And those, so then you get things like, because like if you look at say like Native American beliefs or whatever, you don't really have gods in Native American beliefs. You have things like the corn woman, the spirit of the corn. You have the trickster, coyote, stuff like that. These are not actual gods. People don't actually worship them and make, prayers to them and stuff like that. But what they do worship are spirits. They worship the ancestor spirit. They worship a spirit of the wind or the spirit of whatever. And then most of them will have a creator spirit, right? And that's the early form of what would eventually become, a codified religion, right? Then you get a different phase later on where they sort of turn into effectively what we would call gods with a little g. So if you look at something like Greek mythology or Norse mythology, right? You had gods of, excuse me, sorry. You would have gods of a certain aspect. So you'd have like Nike, the god of victory, for example, Aphrodite, goddess of love, you know, Zeus, god of thunder, whatever, right? That kind of thing. These are actual embodiments of natural phenomenon, right? But what are they essentially? They are essentially the same kind of spirits that, you know, other people before were worshiping, before, making offerings to their spirits in order to appease their ancestors. The same kind of thing. It's just a spirit now that it's a spirit that controls a certain aspect of nature, right? And it's not a very big leap from that to monotheism, because what ends up happening is that they stop becoming just normal, ordinary ancestor spirits, and then they sort of evolve into, godlike spirits. But they're still essentially spirits. That's the idea. And even when you read the Bible, it says in there, in many places, that the Lord is a spirit. In many places, it says that, and that the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is a spirit. Same kind of thing. Satan, and it's sort of like, even when it comes to the bad spirits, Satan and demons, those are just also other spirits, right? And that's where it evolved from, and it sort of became this, now when you think of God, you think of some all-powerful, all like knowing deity that exists on another level. Like if it's real, then he exists in another dimension. He's able to see everything. He knows everything. He like exists outside of normal, ordinary space-time, blah, 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 blah. Ancient people didn't have that concept. That's not what a god was to ancient people. That's not what the god was to the ancient Israelites either. They didn't believe in that either. That it was like, this all-knowing, all-loving. No. They did not believe that at all. This is very much a modern conception of maybe only the last couple hundred years of what God actually is, right? My own personal belief is that none of that's all bullshit. That's my own personal belief. That's what I'll think. I don't believe that there was any kind of, there is no all-knowing, all-loving, omnipotent spirit. I don't believe that. I do believe that there could be entities which exist outside of normal space-time and in other dimensions, and are able to perceive our dimension the same way that we perceive a 2D dimension, right? Like if you write something on a flat piece of paper, you're able to see much more than if you were actually existing in 2 dimensions on that flat piece of paper. We could do a whole stream on this one of these days. I do believe that that's possible, and that person, I'm even willing to entertain the simulation like model of reality. I think that could actually very much be true. That could be true, But we just have no proof of any of this, one way or the other. There's no proof of any of it. And the way I kind of look at it is, if you can't prove any of this stuff, then why worry about it? It's just going to, one day after you die, you're going to figure it out, or you won't. And no amount of fretting here on Earth is going to change anything. So that kind of opens it up, and just believe whatever you want to believe. Believe whatever makes you feel good. It really doesn't matter. And my only rule is that you shouldn't be allowed to force your belief on anybody else. This is why I would never vote for legislation or support someone who, like, even if I found a politician who believed the exact same fucking thing that I did, if he wanted to make it into a law, I wouldn't support him, because I don't think that's right. It's not right to force people to believe what you want. It's not right to force people to live the way that you want to live at the expense of how they want to live. And I very much believe you should have the freedom to express this in any way that you see fit, within reason, I guess, as long as it doesn't hurt other people or whatever. So that's my own personal belief. So that's why I don't think I was created. I don't think it was. I think it was whatever process out there, created the universe, resulted in us indirectly. Whether that ultimately came from a god or not is, I think, irrelevant. Danny Cat, thank you for joining, man. Let's see. One more question before we get on with the abortion portion of our stream. Rob Black, doctors can't speak about natural immunity, but preschool teachers can talk gender studies and give puberty blockers to kids. What clown world do we live in? Here's the thing, Rob Black. preschool teachers are not talking about gender studies or giving puberty blockers to kids. That is not happening in preschool. There is no place in this country where that is a thing that happens, right? The discussion of gender studies in preschool, if there is such a thing, boils down to be nice to people if they like act a certain way or look a certain way. That's what is really going on, right? This is what it really is. It's teaching kids to be tolerant and not judge other people based on the way they look. This is what the Christians can't handle, right? And then, you see all this bullshit on like the Daily Wire where they talk about things like, drag queen story hour and blah 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 blah, whatever. Right. Well, what does that really do? I mean, is the drag queen abusing the children? Like, no, they're just reading a story. The story is usually about how it's okay to look how you want to look and live how you want to live. And that's essentially what all of this stuff is all about. It's especially at those ages. No one is teaching kids about sex at those ages. That's not a thing that's happening anywhere in this war, anywhere in the country. There's no teacher who's like, okay, preschool kids, now it's time to learn about, like anal lube and shit. No, that's not a thing that's happening. That's the bullshit line of attack that the evangelicals and the Christians and shit are actually using to pass their fucking draconian, bullshit laws and enforce people to live the way that they want people to live. That's the attack. There's no truth to it whatsoever. Children that young are not getting puberty blockers either. The puberty blocker thing happens when you're a teenager because that's when you go through puberty, right? So, kids in grade school don't get fucking puberty blockers usually, I mean, I'm sure you'll probably be able to dig up some like instance of where it did happen, maybe once or twice or some shit like that. But it's kind of like they're inventing inventing a problem that really doesn't exist. Like I said, just to kind of like get their base up and riled and get them out there voting, So, and it just has the indirect effect of spreading hate and bigotry. So that another generation is going to grow up hating gay people and thinking that trans people are all pedophiles. It's bullshit. Anyway, I want to shift gears a little bit because Oklahoma has completely banned abortion. Let me copy this. Here's where I got most of the information from. Let me just go ahead and paste that. But, Oklahoma Senate Bill 612, which has been passed, as far as I know, signed into law by Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma, makes attempting or actually performing an abortion a felony, punishable by $100,000, or a fine up to 10 years in jail, or both. This is it. When Amy Coney Barrett and what that other fucking douchebag's name was, what's that one whiny dude became part of the Supreme Court there, everybody was saying that this is it for abortion, and it was only a matter of time. Now it's starting to happen. What's his name? Kavanaugh, that dude, Justice Kavanaugh, when he, was rammed through the Supreme Court, after the Republicans refused to seat Obama's nominee, right? This is it. These are the laws. The Republicans didn't waste any time passing a bunch of laws that will obviously go up to the Supreme Court, and now they have a conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court, and now you can say bye-bye to Roe versus Wade, and this is not the first one, but this is the first one that actually blatantly bans abortion in every instance. Right. This law is so bad that it does not provide an exception in the case of rape or incest. Right. Here is the governor You know, Kevin Stitt, a quote from him: "I know this bill will be challenged immediately by liberal activists from the coast who always seem to want to come in and dictate and mandate and challenge our way of life here in Oklahoma. The most important thing is to take a stand and protect the unborn and protect life in the state of Oklahoma." Right. Here's the Oklahoma State Representative Jim Olson, who was the principal House author. Best quote from him that I saw when it came to the provisions in the law that did not allow for an abortion in the case of rape or incest. Here's how he responded to that. Rape and incest is a horrible crime, and though the baby is conceived in a horrible situation, it still has a right to life. The baby should not be liable for the sins of the father. It's still alive. Think about that for a second. You are a woman. You're walking down the street, minding your own business. Some dude shows up, runs after you, catches you, claps some chloroform over your mouth or whatever, drags you into a van, holds you as a sex slave for 2 weeks, repeatedly rapes you over and over and over. Finally, you manage to get away, and 2 weeks later, you find out you're pregnant. According to this law, that the results of that horrible act are now, if you try to get an abortion, 10 years in jail, $100,000 fine. You have no choice in the matter. You can't say, this baby that you did not want, right? You did not consent to, is now growing within your body, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. And if you try to do something about it, your freedom gets taken away. Just think about that, how that would feel. That, it's not just insulting. It's like almost sort of adding to the actual trauma itself. It's like just an additional kick in the teeth right there. Oh, we know this bad thing happened to you. We know that you were traumatized and beaten and shit like that and raped, but you're going to have this kid, and if you don't like it, you can go to prison. That's basically what the state is saying now in Oklahoma. Basically, the state's saying, if you don't like it, get the fuck out. You have to leave now. Now you have to, uproot your fucking life and all this other shit because you were victimized, And that kind of fits right in with how Christians and conservatives usually talk about rape, A lot of people don't want to say this, but I'll fucking say it because it's true. It is very much a thing among the right wing in this country to blame the victim when these things happen. Well, you wouldn't have been raped if you didn't look a certain way. What were you doing out there at night? You were asking for it. How come your husband wasn't with you? Oh, you're not married? Well, there's your problem. See? You notice how this all fits together, right? Because if they actually did believe, if they didn't believe that, they would put a provision in there for victims of violent crimes. Nope. That's what really this all is. What not putting that provision in there is essentially victim blaming. That's what it is, right? It's saying that it's your fault that you got raped, and now you have to live with the consequences of it, right? You have to live with the consequences of wearing that skirt that's too short, of being outside when it was too late without being accompanied by a male protection, stuff like that. We're not going to fucking help you, And that's how conservatives and Christians and all of those people have always treated rape. It's always been like that. Rape has always been like a female problem, Never like a problem with men. You never blame the actual people who fucking commit the goddamn crime. They only blame the people who are victims of the crime. And this is just one more way of basically just fucking showing women that they don't give a fuck about you, right? The great thing about it is that other women will support this. Conservative Christian women will see this and say that's perfectly 100% acceptable because, according to their twisted ass worldview, God gave them this is a gift from God, this little baby. Yeah, you had to suffer through 2 weeks of being the shit kicked out of you and repeatedly raped, tied to a bed, treated like a fucking animal, like a piece of meat and stuff. But hey, now God gave you this gift of this small child where you get to clean diapers and shit and present it for the rest of your fucking life. You know? Think about that. Think about somebody. Now let's turn it around here. Let's say that you are a child and you find out when you're going through your angsty teenage phase, the reason why your mother fucking hates you so much is because you're the result of a rape. Let's think about that. How do you think that child's going to turn out? Do you think that child's going to like that? Knowing that part? Do you think that child's going to be happy? Oh, well, at least I'm alive? Knowing that my father was just some fucking criminal that I don't even know his name. And maybe this is the reason why my mother beats the shit out of me all the time. Right? Maybe this is the reason why my mother fucking hates me so much. Is because I was like the product of like a violent trauma. There are no winners in this scenario. The kid doesn't win. The kid's gonna grow up fucked up. If if the mother even like hangs on to him, probably is just gonna give him up for adoption or whatever, right? But even still, I mean, that's another scenario. So you're adopted. Then you find out that, oh, you were the product of a rape. How's that gonna make the kid feel? Nobody wanted me, right? And in this case, it'd be true. Nobody would fucking want them. That's the reason why they were put up for adoption. It's a shitty thing to say, but it's true, and this is what's gonna happen. Abortion is never a good thing, right? I think, you hear politicians talking about how it should not be easy and it should be, or it should be rare, but still, you should be able to get them. There are reasons why. There are reasons when it's better to abort a child than to have it. And this is one of those reasons. When you're raped, when you don't want it. Incest is the other, thing that there's no exception for here. No exception for incest, right? Well, most of the time, incest is a pregnancy resulting from incest is also a pregnancy resulting from rape. Most of the time, there are instances where there is consensual incest. It's just like disgusting, and you don't want to admit that as a species. We don't want to admit that happens, but it does. But usually, when it's incest, it's usually an older male member of the family taking advantage of a younger female member of the family. The creepy uncle or whatever. That's usually what it is, and it's usually the exact same thing as everything from actual rape applies. And it's also worse in this case because now the child is going to have developmental problems, right? Because it's a result of incest. It's like, if there was a reason to have an abortion, those would be the two reasons. But this bill doesn't want that, because this bill is put together by Christian fucking Christofascists, right? Oh, wait a minute. My battery is running low. Is my PC not plugged in? It should be plugged in. What the fuck? Why is this thing not plugged in? Oh, it came out. Okay, I better plug that back in. So yeah, this is a bill that's, put together by Christofascists that don't actually think about any of this shit, right? Because the one thing about religion is that religion is not based in reality. Religion does not rely on facts. It doesn't rely on what's actually happening. Religion relies on faith. That's the main difference between religion and science. Religion relies on faith. Well, faith is... Well, what happened? Am I still streaming? I am, right? I hope so. Okay. Why is my pencil not working here? Okay, there it goes. Religion relies on belief and faith. Well, what is belief? What is faith? Faith is belief in something that you have no proof for. Right? So they just believe that some omnipotent deity out there manipulated events in such a way that this woman got raped in order to get pregnant. Because, the baby might grow up and cure cancer or something. That's the rationale. That's the rationale behind not, you know, allowing for abortions in the cases of rape or incest. This baby's a gift from God. He might grow up and, like, cure cancer. He might grow up and discover warp drive, whatever. He's most likely going to grow up and become a fucking drug addict and a criminal because he's going to have a shitty childhood that's filled with trauma. That's most likely what's going to fucking happen. Right? And it's most likely going to result in just, multiple lives being ruined. The quality of life going way down for people. It's bullshit. I don't know. That's the fucking shitty part about this whole thing. Anyway. But, this law is going up. It's going to get in front of the Supreme Court. And fucking Amy Coney Barrett and, Brett Kavanaugh are going to uphold it. And it's going to open the floodgates for every other backwards ass fucking red state out there to pass similar laws and restrict women's rights all over the country. The White House actually has a solution for this. The Democrats, they have a solution for this, right? It is the Women's Health Protection Act, which would actually codify Roe versus Wade into law. Because there is no federal law that says you are allowed to have abortions, right? Abortions in this country they hinge upon the decision in Roe versus Wade, right? Which is a, decision having to do with privacy, privacy rights or whatever, right? Which opened the door for there to be legal abortions in the country. So there is no actual protection. There's no right. A woman does not have a right to an abortion in the United States, right? This law would actually make that codify that in the law. And it, of course, died in the Senate because, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are basically single-handedly destroying not only, Joe Biden's presidency, but also any chance of the Democrats hanging on to the Senate past the midterms. And they're basically, by killing this bill in the Senate, they are allowing this shit to go forward. So, this is what happens when you don't vote. I count Joe Manchin in with the Republicans because he's highly conservative. He's essentially a Republican in Democrat in name only. Of course, he comes from what? Where the fuck is Joe Manchin from? I think he's from, is he from Kentucky or Tennessee or some shit? He's from like a heavy red state where, the Republicans and Democrats are essentially the same thing in those states, And Joe Manchin is mainly just interested in himself and his own business. That's the whole reason why he's, like, even in Congress, is to enrich himself. And we need to vote his ass out. We need to vote him out. Same with Kristen Sinema. Same with all of the other, conservatives in the Democratic Party. We need to purge those motherfuckers. The Republicans did it on their side. They purged out all the people who were, like, not crazy enough for them. We need to do the same shit on our side. Where's the Democratic version of MAGA? Where is it? Where are the progressive, counterparts to MAGA? Where we can, like, bend some of this shit to actually get some people, like, elected who will fucking do what we want. That's what happens when you don't vote. Perfect solution right there. We'll put an end to all of this stuff. We'll protect all of these women in all of these red states. Can't even get that shit passed because the people we have who are currently in Congress are too conservative. Anyway, this is, of course, not the only abortion law that has been passed recently. Arizona recently passed a abortion ban of up to 15 weeks. So anything past 15 weeks is now illegal in Arizona. Can't get that. Mississippi, South Dakota, Idaho have all passed abortion restrictions recently. Of course, the super big one that has got all the media attention is Texas's abortion ban, which we did an entire stream on, so I'll just touch on it briefly here. But you all know about that, the abortion ban in Texas, where it allows normal, ordinary citizens to sue people if they want to get an abortion. Like, not only can you sue the woman, but you can also sue the abortion provider. You can sue the guy that picked her up and brought her over in the Uber. You can sue the dude who sold her a taco at the taco stand outside of the abortion clinic. Anybody who, and you don't even have to live in Texas to do that. You can just like randomly sue, like people who don't even live in Texas can sue. That actually went before the Supreme Court, and they decided to let it stand. They had an opportunity to stop that and to prevent that from taking effect, and they basically said, "No, we'll just let it go through the court system." That kind of goes to show it's over. Roe versus Wade is over. And this is, elections have consequences, man, right? And if you're thinking that you can just move, if you're thinking like, oh, well, okay, that sucks, but just move out of Texas then, or whatever, just move to a state that actually does allow you to have an abortion or whatnot. There are laws being proposed in certain states to even address that. Here's a really great one. This is Politico. Let me open this up here. Let's go to our laptop window. And let me just put this down in the stream also so you guys can follow along with this. Pretty good article from Politico out of Missouri. They have proposed, the crazy Christians in Missouri have proposed a law which would prevent you from even leaving the state to have an abortion. So, you're basically kind of settling on using the same method that Texas is using in order to sue people, Basically, this says that even if you leave the state and you have an abortion, if you reside in Missouri, anyone can sue you using the same kind of method in Texas, right? You don't even have to live in Missouri in order to sue somebody. That's the other thing. That's the thing that I just don't fucking understand, how this shit is even considered, like, how this can even be considered fucking, like, constitutional here. That would be the thing that you would assume would, like, turn this shit off, right? And if you even if you just leave the state to try to do it, that's it. Too bad. Still get sued. So there you go. That kind of goes to show, like, it's not even about states' rights. This is a pretty interesting read. I recommend it for you guys. But let me go ahead and close that. It's not even about states' rights. That's the other lie that conservatives will say about these things, right? Oh, it's all states' rights, states' rights. We just want to be able to do the shit that we want to do in our state, and have state sovereignty, and then you could just go to another state if you don't like it. Blah 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 blah. Nope. They're even trying to control what people in other states who don't live there. That's a perfect example right there. And if they had the chance, they will enforce their will everywhere. Republicans and conservatives don't actually give a fuck about states' rights. They do not. That's a lie. It's always been a lie, right? A lie about everything that they talk about that has to do with states' rights. Gun control rights, voting rights, what's the other thing where they talk about states' rights? Is basically, like, states' rights was kind of like an anti-segregation thing. Like, where they would say, oh, states' rights, we want to be able to segregate in our state, basically, is what states' rights was all about originally. They don't actually give a fuck. It's complete bullshit. That entire, like, line of reasoning has bullshit. It's always been bullshit. And this is a perfect example right here. If they had the chance, they would pass a law nationally in order to enforce their will on everybody. regardless of like what state you fucking live in, right? Because it's about control. The whole thing's about control, right? Abortion is about control. It's about controlling women and controlling their sexuality, right? Um, the anti-gay, the anti-trans things. It's about control. It's about enforcing gender norms and stuff like that. You know, that's really what it is. It's they don't care about freedom at all. They don't give a shit about freedom, especially your freedom to do things that they don't like. You know, freedom to conservatives and Christians and all that. Freedom to these people is basically living the way that we want you to live. That's what they consider freedom, you know, because it all has to do with like God and the Bible, and you only get true freedom if you live like a Christian life and all this other bullshit, you know. It's kind of like the opposite of what the United States is all about. You know, the United States is supposed to be a secular country. You know, that's actually that is something that the Constitution actually does say, you know, separation of church and state. You know, there's not supposed to be a religious test for office, for example. You know, there's not supposed to be any laws that, you know, make any kind of facet of any religion official, you know, at all. There's not supposed to be anything like that. You know, that's the one thing that like it's basically the complete opposite of what the Christians believe when it comes to like, you know, this is a Christian nation and all that. In real life, it's the exact opposite. Anyway, that's what this stream's all about, folks. Elections have consequences. So I want to introduce you guys to somebody named Nathan Dam. Nathan Dam is the Republican state senator from Oklahoma who authored this abortion ban, this complete abortion ban. He is a real piece of work. I recommend looking him up. I'll put his name down in here in the chat here. Representative Nathan Dam, D-A-H-M, Oklahoma State Senate. That's the guy. He's a real piece of work. He's a hardcore conservative evangelical Christian, raised by a missionary family in Romania. Apparently they moved there. He was born in Oklahoma, but then they moved to Romania shortly after the communism fell in order to be missionaries. And then he moved back to Oklahoma, right? He's got he graduated from this Christian academy called ABECA, which I couldn't find very much about, but eventually became the dean of the academy. So this dude is like, you know, heavily invested in this stuff. And he was rated basically the most conservative senator in Oklahoma, which is saying a lot because Oklahoma is the reddest of red states. You know, you're not going to find a state that's more red than Oklahoma, right? Very, very, very much into gun rights, this dude. He proposed a bill that would basically penalize like people who enforced federal gun restrictions in Oklahoma. So if you were... Now, a lot of these bills didn't pass, obviously, but this is the kind of shit this guy's trying to get passed, right? A bill that if a gun store followed the federal law, they would get fined in Oklahoma. That's how insane this dude is for gun rights, right? He voted for a bill penalizing the enforcement of the Obamacare, right? The, you know, ACA, right? Tried to pass a bill in Oklahoma saying you'd get fined if you signed up for Obamacare. Right? So what does he care about? He cares about killing people with guns, doesn't give a shit about getting people health care. Mighty Christian of you there, pal. He proposed a bill in 2014 called the Piers Morgan Constitutional Right to Keep and Bear Arms Without Infringement Act, which would allow you to open carry guns without a permit. Apparently, Oklahoma already is an open carry state. You just need to have a permit in order to open carry, which kind of makes sense, you know? I mean, you would think, like, say, for example, if you're a police officer, you'd want to know that this guy that you just pulled over for speeding or whatever, you know, might have a gun on him. You'd think you'd want the cops to know that information, right? Nope, not in Oklahoma. He actually went on Piers Morgan's show to debate this with him. That kind of sounds like a stunt to me, to be honest. God damn, this headset is uncomfortable. That kind of sounds very much like a stunt. Of course, none of this actually got passed, but these are the things that he's trying to get passed, right? He introduced a bill to enable ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine to be sold over the counter. Let's open that one up. Okay, this is the bill here. This is some funny shit. I'll put this down in the chat for you guys here. Let me just stick that down there. Okay, let's turn on my laptop window. Senator seeks over-counter ivermectin hydroxychloroquine law. Right. Here's this quote I thought was funny from him. Right. It's incredible to me that the sole focus of the current administration and the capital S science is on a vaccine that isn't quite as safe and effective as they make it out to be, Dam said. I believe we should focus on proven early illness treatments such as ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine rather than continuing to pad the pockets of big pharma. Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin do not treat COVID. This has been tested repeatedly over and over. There are multiple studies that say both of these things don't do anything. And as a matter of fact, they may be detrimental to people's health. Hydroxychloroquine has been shown to cause heart problems with people who take it to try to treat COVID. Ivermectin, a huge study just came out last month that showed ivermectin doesn't do jack shit. And people can even hurt themselves by overdosing on the fucking shit because they're getting the animal veterinarian version that you give to horses and taking that stuff, and it's fucking them up. Ivermectin is an anti-bacteria, anti-parasite medication. It is not an antiviral medication, you know. But this is the kind of guy. So yeah, you can see, you know, heavily pro-gun rights, believes in wacky fucking alternative medicine cures. Let's turn this bullshit off, please. Let's get rid of that. More craziness from Nathan Dam here. He in 2021 filed a bill to ban paper straws, and he did it on Earth Day of all days. So, kind of goes to show for you here. See, it's not just about like the religion. It's not just about Christianity. It's the culture. It's conservative culture. Why would you, as a Christian, want to ban paper straws? You know that paper straws are something that are good for the environment because plastic straws will be around forever. And it seems kind of wrong to just use a plastic straw one time when you're drinking some Coke or whatever. You're drinking your Mountain Dew, whatever the fuck it is you drink. And then you throw it away, and then that straw exists for 30,000 years until it finally fucking breaks down or whatever. But then it never really truly breaks down. It just turns into like little bits of microplastic that like animals and shit ingest for like the next 100,000 years or whatever. This is like if it doesn't float around in the ocean for a few decades and end up inside of like the fucking like, you know, lower intestine of a sea turtle or some shit. Seems kind of wrong that we should be doing that. Seems kind of like if you were a Christian and you believed that this world was created for you to take care of, that seems like kind of the wrong way to take care of it, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you think that if Jesus actually did come back one day and saw a bunch of sea turtles with plastic straws all fucking hanging out in their noses and shit, he might be a little pissed off at that? He might think, hey, you assholes could have made paper straws and saved my sea turtles. Why didn't you do that? Oh, you didn't do it because you wanted to fucking pwn the libs, huh? Yeah, mighty Christian of you, asshole. Like, don't you think Jesus might be a little angry about that? It's almost kind of like their actions their words say they believe in these things, but their actions do the exact opposite. The way they're acting kind of like none of their religion is actually true. Kind of seems like that way to me, right? He got kind of famous because after this paper straw ban, he went on Twitter and during an official Senate release for this, he made a joke about Kamala Harris, basically kind of implied that the only reason Kamala Harris is where she is today is because she blowjobbed her way into the vice presidency. That was his yeah, that was his joke, right? This is his actual quote from this is a his actual Senate press release when he filed a paper straw ban in Oklahoma. This is the actual quote that he put on the press release. There's a lot of different things that could be said about Kamala Harris. There's a lot of different things that could be said with her vast experience and how she got her start in politics. I'm talking with some people, one thing that could be said is that, you can't use a paper straw for a milkshake, but maybe Kamala Harris could because her vast experience, maybe she would be able to get that accomplished. Basically saying that she could suck a milkshake through a paper straw because of her exquisite, oral sex sucking abilities or whatever, because that's how she, got her way up. Vice president, folks. Well, she's the vice president now. She wasn't the vice president then. This is a Christian. This guy's supposed to be a Christian, making misogynist oral sex jokes about a woman who eventually became the vice president. Kind of seems like Jesus would really like that, huh? Jesus would really approve. When people criticized him, his response was this tweet. Let's open up the tweet. This is from Nathan Dam. His response to people getting pissed that he was a douchebag and making jokes about Kamala Harris. Breaking, if you think I'm going to be politically correct, you need to realize a few things. You obviously don't know nothing about me. You're in for a bad time. I've been assured my jokes are hilarious. Your emotions are irrelevant. Yeah, this is his response. So you notice he didn't apologize. He didn't say, oh, I misspoke. He didn't even give that half-assed apology that Christians and conservatives usually give when they say something out of line. Usually when they say something that's like, that goes too far, they give that sort of bullshit like, I'm sorry you got offended policy. Didn't even do that. He doubled down on it. Basically said, if you don't like it, kiss my ass. And, that's supposed to be a Christian. Remember, this guy's supposed to be a follower of Jesus. Let's turn this off. He's supposed to be loving his neighbor. He's supposed to be helping people. He's supposed to be helping his fellow men and feeding the hungry. He's supposed to be selling everything he owns and following the ways of the Christ. He's not doing any of that shit, is he? Nope. Instead, he's raising money through insulting female politicians so that people are still allowed to pollute. That's his. That's what he's doing for the kingdom of God, there, folks. Right. Real piece of work here, man. Anyway, one thing that I really, really liked from him was a bill that he proposed. It was called Senate Bill 33 in Oklahoma. This was, of course, after the election of Donald Trump. And what Senate Bill 33 did is that it removed any input from the voter when the legislature found elected basically determined electors for the electoral college. So it basically like said that the electors were allowed to appoint their electors. Like the legislature was allowed to appoint their electors, and it didn't have to conform to what the voters actually wanted anymore. So that way they could basically just send off, if some point in the far future Oklahoma actually went blue, which it never will, but if it did, the legislature could just say nope and appoint a bunch of Republican electors to the Electoral College, essentially just removing democracy from Oklahoma. That's his proposal, Senate Bill 33. Of course, that didn't get through. Most of this shit didn't get through. The only thing that actually did get through was his abortion ban. So, there you go. That's what this guy wants. He's a misogynist, highly misogynistic. He pollutes. He wants people to be able to fucking pollute. He is kind of a fucking douchebag. Doesn't care about people getting health care. Really cares more about people being able to blow each other away. And actively tried to remove democracy in Oklahoma. That's what happens when you don't vote. People like this get in charge. And you can kind of see how much shit this guy tried to get passed. Majority of his bills never go anywhere. But it only takes one. It only takes one in order for it to, hurt millions of people, right? It just really blows me away how the Christians who are supposed to be living a certain way, they're supposed to be believing certain things. When they get into power, they do the exact opposite every fucking time. This guy's a prime example. What happens if this dude becomes the state, like, actual senator that goes to, what if he decides to actually run for, like, the National Senate or the House of Representatives? You know, this fucking guy is going to be making laws for millions and millions and millions of the rest of us. You know, what about all the people who aren't conservative, crazy Christians who live in Oklahoma? They're basically victims now of this asshole's fucking, like, predilection to enforce his will on people who don't believe in his religion. That's the thing about all of this, folks, right? You know, that's the thing about this. You are free to not get abortions if you're a Christian. Just don't get an abortion. No one is forcing you to get an abortion. You're free not to be a trans person. Don't be a trans person. If you're a Christian, right, and you think it's against your religion, then don't do it. You're free to not be gay, or you're free to just express your sexuality in any way you want. You know, Christians and conservatives and shit think being gay is a choice. I personally don't believe that. I think it's something that you're born with. But if they're correct and it actually is a choice, then they have the choice to just not be gay. Just don't fucking do it then, right? Don't express yourself that way if you don't like it. How do they get the ability to force everyone else to live the way they want to live? Why is that right? Right? Why should they be allowed to do that? They shouldn't be allowed to do that because their morality is not something that you can legislate. It never works. You cannot legislate morality. It never fucking works that way, right? There's always going to be people that don't believe in the same fucking shit that you believe in, especially when it comes to crimes that, things that are not crimes, like being gay, like getting an abortion, whatever. You know, these are not crimes. They should not be crimes, right? It's like, how is it that they fucking and how can I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. Explain it to me how. What's the legal basis for enforcing your religious your religious dogma on other people, right? Why is it not good enough for you yourself personally just to make personal choices that align with your religion? Why do you have to make other people do the same? You know, I know the reason why. It just doesn't make sense to me. The reason why is because, they think Jesus won't come back and like fucking, ban abortion or whatever unless they like get everybody to do exactly what they say. That's the real reason why. Right? But explain to me like the actual rational basis behind that. I don't know. I don't understand this shit, folks. I don't care about your religion. I don't care. Be a Christian. Go be a Christian. Live your life in a Christian way. I don't give a fuck, but I don't care what the Bible says. I don't give a fuck what the Bible says, right? They say the Bible says this and that. We have to protect the little baby fetuses. I don't fucking care, right? That's not good enough. That's not good enough to be a legal like rationale, right? That should be laughed out of court. When these go before the Supreme Court, there should be no defense for that. But that's not going to happen because now we have people in the Supreme Court who believe in this shit, and they're going to vote their religion. They're going to rule on the Supreme Court according not to the basis of the law, not to precedent, not to establish precedent, not to what the law actually says, any of that shit. They're going to rule based on their religion. And this is fucking what I mean why I titled this stream, Christofascists. That's what Christian fascism is. If you don't think Christians can be fascists, then you're sorely mistaken, folks. We're seeing it right before our eyes. Anyway, voting has consequences. Vote. Get out there and vote. All right. It also is good to also note that Nathan Dam ran unopposed. Marjorie Taylor Greene ran unopposed. Right. So get out there and not only vote, but there needs to be someone that they can vote against. Right? Like people, it's not going to help. Like if the Democrats in Georgia don't run someone against Marjorie Taylor Greene, if they don't run someone, even if that is like a district that's like okay, we're going to lose it. Fuck it. Who cares? Put somebody there. Give us the chance to actually, even the people, if they don't like these people, they don't have a choice. Put someone there that they can actually fucking like vote for. Right? You'll be surprised. People will turn out if given the opportunity, if given the alternative to the shit sandwich that the fucking Republicans are feeding us right now. Right? Anyway, let's read some comments and then I gotta end this. Couple more comments here. Dynacat, if it was the Oklahoman way of life, they wouldn't need a law, would they? Exactly. If they were all, that, and that's kind of gets down to what I was just saying. It's like, if you don't like abortion, then don't fucking get abortions. The end. Period. Full stop. No one is forcing you to get a fucking abortion, right? Here's the funny thing. You know who actually does get abortions? Christians. Okay? Seriously, 50%, it's not, it's like, I don't have the stats right in front of me. But it's kind of like the proportion of people, like atheists who get abortions is around 24%, right? The vast majority of people who actually get abortions are Christians. It's something like 87% of all the people who get abortions are Christians. Whether they're Christian or they're Catholic, it's the same thing. And all the other religions are jammed into the remaining 13. It's something like that. It's a lot. I mean, the last time I looked this up was a few years ago. But here's the thing. Just stop fucking getting them. There you go. Problem solved. Don't get an abortion. Teach your kids not to get abortions, right? If you're a Christian, tell your kids, hey, don't get an abortion, right? And, but there's things that come along with that. The reasons why the kids are getting them when they're Christians anyways, because they're afraid of what their parents are going to say, so they hide it from them. It's like, no, you have to be, it comes from that, like, strict sort of, like, upbringing shit. Right. Well, also half of that is that the people that get them are like don't really give a fuck because, it's great to have faith in things, but then real life comes along and you got to make decisions. And I understand that as well, right? But that's the thing about it. It's like, why does there have to be a law preventing people? Just fucking live the way that you say you want to live. And we wouldn't have this problem. For sure. Modern monk movement. Does a baby have a right to be born? What if the baby becomes uh, antinatalist when it gets older? Oh, you mean like a child, like antinatalist as in people who don't believe in having children? I don't know. Do people have a right to be born? I don't think that there is such a thing as a right to life. No, I don't believe that. Um, because there is no right to life in nature. You know, are lions, like, say you had like a wildebeest, you know, in Africa, are the lions going to not eat the wildebeest that's pregnant? No. Right? Are the lions going to be like, hey, that wildebeest is about to have a calf. Let's skip that one. Let's go get the other one. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to eat whatever's fucking there, right? There's no right to life in nature at all. An animal will eat you while you're alive and struggling. A mountain lion, a tiger, a fucking grizzly bear will catch you and will devour you while you are alive and kicking, and it will bite your face off and start fucking chowing on your entrails while you're conscious. And that's how much it gives a shit about your right to life. So I don't really believe that at all. It's not a thing that really exists. If there really was such a thing as a right to life, you know, because the way that the Christians and the conservatives say it, they say this is a God-given right. Well, if it was God-given, then if you were a Christian and someone tried to shoot you, the bullet would bounce off of you because you have a right to live. And if God is all powerful, right, and omnipotent or whatever, then he would defend his followers, would he not? Would he not ensure that his followers have a right to life? I seem to remember a story from the Bible about three guys being forced into an oven to be burned to death, and then the Lord miraculously saving them. Isn't that in the Bible? I seem to remember that story. I can't remember exactly their names or what Bible verse that is. But that is in the Bible. That is in the Bible. There are miraculous tellings of people being defended and their essentially right to life being upheld. Correct? Why doesn't that happen in real life? You know, pretty sure that if someone who's a Christian now walked and stuck himself inside of an oven, he would probably burn to death. Isn't that true? So, no, there is no right to life. You know, if that were true, Christians wouldn't get sick either, would they? You know, being a Christian would be enough to prevent you from getting the Rona. You wouldn't get cancer. You wouldn't get any of that stuff because you would be protected because God would be enforcing your right to life. But you don't actually have that because that's not a thing that really exists. That's a thing we made up. You know, we made it up because, like George Carlin said, we're alive. Yeah, I'm taking that from his comedy routine, but it's true. It's true. That's a thing that people made that shit up because we're alive and we like to bullshit ourselves into thinking that life has meaning. And, you know, life doesn't really have meaning. The meaning of life is the meaning that you put into life. That's the meaning of life. The meaning of life is whatever you fucking want it to be. It's your life. Your life. Go find some meaning in it. Whether it means this or that or whatever. There is no meaning outside. Not that any of us can see, not that there's been any proof of, not that any philosophy's been able to discover. Not really. I don't know. Maybe there actually is one day. Maybe someday someone will create a portal gun like fucking in, you know, Rick and Morty and actually go to whatever other dimension and find out there actually really is a god and there actually is a meaning to life. Maybe one day that'll happen, but right now there is none. It's just, you know, live the life fucking the best way that you can. Find some fucking meaning in it. I know. It sucks. It sucks and it doesn't give comfort to anything to know that in real life your life is actually meaningless. It really is. There is no, you know, you consider the scale of the universe and what's actually out there and how small you actually are. on the grand scale of things in the universe, we here on this planet, we are a microscopic dot on this planet. Here, there's infinity out there. It's so vast that we can't comprehend it. Don't try. You can't comprehend how vast the universe actually is. And something that big, trying to, the traditional uses of the word meaning fly out the window. You're not important. You'll be dead in 50 to 100 years, and then in another 20 years, you'll be completely forgotten. That's just how shit works. That's what life is all about. And it's like, live it the best way you can. That's really, as far as I can tell, that's the meaning of life right there. So there is no fucking I don't know. I don't think that's a depressing thing. I don't think that doesn't keep me up at night. I don't suffer existential horror out there because I'm like an ant in the cosmos. No. The way I see it, it doesn't really fucking matter. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe that makes me a nihilist or something, but I'm not a nihilist. Moving on. Modern muck movement. A baby never consented to being born. This is true too. This is also true. I mean, here's the thing about that. Like I said, you want abortion to be rare, but there are instances where it should be allowed. I'll give you an example. My mother, when she was pregnant with me, had a cyst on one of her ovaries. And this is, the doctor said at that time, if it turned out to be cancerous, then it would result in, you would have to get an abortion, or your life would be, basically put your life in danger, right? That's what she was told. Turned out that it wasn't cancerous, it was just a cyst, everything was cool. But, it kind of puts this shit in perspective when you realize that, oh, my life may have been terminated even before I was born. Yes, I would like to be born, but at the same time, if my mother would have died because of that, my little sister never would have been born either. Kind of puts it a little bit in perspective there. Kind of makes you think that you're not the most important thing in the universe. When you realize that there was a chance, there was a chance that it never would have happened, and you yourself personally never would have had a chance to be alive, right? A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people don't like the idea that they're not the most important thing out there, that the things they believe are not the most important things, that their life personally is not the most important thing, that they're not the actual player one in the simulation. They don't like the idea that they might be like, that they're just a bit player on the cosmic scheme of things. They like to think that they're the hero. And no, you're not. You're just a person. You're just another person out there along with everybody else. One day you'll be gone and forgotten. And that's just the truth, I don't know. Write a book or something. I guess. Write a book. Do something that will solidify your legacy for years to come. Do something that people will remember you by, if it bothers you. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't know. I kind of like the idea. I like the idea that one day somebody might come across one of my images of my artwork or something, or one of the comics that I drew. Something like that. I like the idea that someday somebody might see one of those, 300 years from now and wonder who I was and what I was all about and all that. But ultimately, yeah. Ultimately, it'll all be gone. One day all of our civilization will be gone too. That's another thing that people don't like. People don't like that idea that everything that we have, all the buildings, all the mankind is going to be gone one day. Who knows when? 1,000,000 years from now, maybe. Maybe 500 years from now, the way things are going. People don't like that idea either. They don't like the idea that it's all transitory. That we're just here temporarily, And it's always kind of been like that. Even the Earth, the very Earth itself, one day will no longer be here. It will get swallowed up by the sun in like another 4 billion years or something, you know. By that point, mankind will most likely be dead and extinct. Or who knows? Maybe we won't be. Maybe we'll have evolved or something. Maybe we'll have spread across the galaxy by that point. Who even knows? So, it doesn't bother me, folks. It really doesn't. None of this existential shit really bothers me at all. It's just, you know, there either is or there isn't an afterlife. We'll find out, right? It either is or isn't worth it, right? It either is or isn't, like, you know, there either is or there isn't some greater meaning to existence. And it's really not worth sweating over. I would really much rather care about other things that really affect me in my life than these grand cosmic questions, because these questions are unanswerable. Anyway, folks, don't mean to leave you on such a sad note like that. Socialism on roids, thank you for joining. Okay, I can answer these questions. Let's answer these, and then I got to get going because I got to take a leak. If Virginia is anything to go by, our real problems are only beginning. Republicans are starting to vote in midterm and special elections at the same rate as presidential elections. Yeah, they're motivated. That's the thing that we don't have on our side. We Democrats and progressives and liberals and shit. We're very divided. There are people on the left who despise people like me just as much as they despise conservatives, because I'm not all the way. You know, there are people that think that I'm like a traitor and shit because I'm not like a communist or whatever. You know what I mean? We're very divided on the left. We tend to only vote in national elections or when we're the party out of power. And the minute someone comes in there that even like has a D behind their name, the left goes to sleep. And that's just what it's been like for fucking as long as I can remember, right? The Republicans and conservatives aren't like that. They get angry. And this is actually what all of this shit that we're talking about is just their political parties, you know, the Republicans manipulating them through anger. You're definitely correct there, socialism. On roids. It was never about abortion. It was about using religious conservatism as a hiding place for white nationalism. 100% true. They really don't give a shit about abortion when it affects black people or Latinos. They only really seem to care when it affects white people. You're definitely true there. If conservatives actually believed in a right to life, they wouldn't join militias with the intent of planning to one day kill non-conservatives. Yeah, it's because right to life only seems to apply to the little baby fetuses and not anybody else who's actually alive. Anyway, you're definitely true, man. I think I saw your channel. Didn't you used to have a channel way back in the day? I don't know, man. I'll check you out. I think I remember seeing some videos from you. Um, but I'll see. Do you still make videos, man? I don't know if you do. I'm gonna go back and check them out some more. Anyway, guys, thank you all for joining. I gotta get going here because I really have to pee, and plus I have to unpack because my house is still fucking totally. My house is all fucked up. Anyway, you can kind of see we made some progress here on the upper right. You know, not looking too bad. I need to do my usual end of the stream social media kind of kick here. Because if I don't do it, I notice that people don't visit my shit. So, let me just pull up all of my stuff. Let me go to my thing here. My shop manager. Did I get some sales? Hey, I got some sales. All right. Come on, Etsy, open up. I also have some, let me see. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry, just pulling up my links. UCD videos. There we go. Okay, so this here is, let me turn on my laptop window. And this here is my SD shop. If you guys like what I do, and you want to give me some money, please consider buying something from my SD shop. I sell prints, stuff like that. There's a link down in the chat. I sell these are like Lovecraft prints, that kind of thing. This is one that's really popular. This is like a Azathoth kind of, you know. These are all hand stained prints. No two are alike. So if you like me and you want to support the channel, please consider checking me out there on Etsy. All of the artwork that we do eventually makes its way to my DeviantArt site here. There's the link, so you can see I put my webcomic up here. I put other stuff, you know. These you can see all my artwork. You can download all of this and use it for whatever you want to use it for. Anyway, check me out there on DeviantArt. I have a webcomic also called Hawanja. It is at hawanja.com. It's got you know, ninjas and stuff in it, and people and swords, people's heads getting chopped off, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. Check me out there, hawanja.com. And I have another YouTube channel. It's called UCD Videos. This is where I talk about toys and video games and Godzilla and that kind of thing. Haven't been doing much with this lately, but I have some plans for, I'm going to start doing like lore kind of videos, that kind of thing. So that'll all just go here. So if you want to see me talk about non-political stuff, if you want to see me talk about video games and toys and Masters of the Universe and Godzilla, shit like that, please check me out on UCD Videos. Anyway, guys, that's all I got. Thank you all for joining so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Socialism on Roids, for joining. Dynacat, great to see you as always. Modern Monk Movement, great to see you. Lewis the Hedgehog, obviously, great to see you, man. You're great. Rob Black, thank you for joining. Thank you. And then Mr. FR here. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Thank you also for joining. I really appreciate it, guys. We will be back next weekend, Saturday at 11 a.m. 100% for sure I will be here. Anyway, folks, adios. Next time, we're actually going to talk about aliens. That's what we're going to talk about. Anyway, bye.